The topic that will be debated is service delivery for transition age youth and adults, empowerment versus care. My name is Addie Farlow, and I will be the opener, illustrator, and fielder during this debate.
And I'm Alex, and will be the summarizer and researcher.
Employment is one of the most important aspects of an adult's life. Employment rates for individuals with autism spectrum disorder, or ASD, is extremely low compared to the general population. They range between 4.1% to 11.8%, according to Brooke and others in 2018. Providing individuals with ASD employment opportunities can be difficult due to the stigma of what ASD is and the lack of research surrounding this topic. Those with disabilities are not given equal opportunity in their post-school education or employment. Their future is determined by other people due to lack of care in many different ways, such as funding, rehabilitation, and support. Many people who may employ those with disabilities find difficulty receiving the same amount of work from those with disabilities and issues related to liability. This is an important topic to discuss because individuals with ASD may not be receiving the appropriate services needed to support employment and community opportunities. Research reveals that people with ASD have limited employment and less competitive wages. This raises questions about ethics for people with ASD in relation to the services they have a right to. Next, Alex will summarize the point and counterpoint that this debate will be discussing.
In this section, I will be providing some background information on 3 types of service transitions for youth and adults with ASD that will be discussed in this informal debate. I will begin by discussing each of these services through the lens of the practicality of having such services. The first is education. Ideally, service transitions in education should be integrated in the Individualized Education Plan, IEP. In an IEP, specific goals should be addressed for the IEP as well as skill set development outside of the school environment. Examples of education service transitions include college training and literacy training as recommended through the research of Chen and colleagues in 2015 and Kaya and colleagues in 2016. The next service transition is community and functional living. This entails adaptive skills such as learning how to use public transportation, grooming oneself, and much more that are a necessary part of adulthood. Examples of these services are transportation services, interpreter services, community rehabilitation, and rehabilitation technology, which were mentioned by researchers such as Chen and colleagues in 2015, Kaya and colleagues in 2016, and McDonald and Revel in 2010. The third and last service transition that will be discussed today is employment. With the appropriate support, people with ASD are believed to work effectively according to their strengths. So some examples of services for this include vocational training, on-job training, job readiness, job search and placement assistance, and job maintenance, which has been consistent across the research of Chen and colleagues in 2015, Kaya and al. In 2016, and Ham and Associates in 2014. At this point in the debate, I will shift gears and now provide some background information on the counterpoint perspective. First, it is believed that individuals with ASD may lack experience or the skill set needed to further their education, functional living, or employment opportunities. One example that is often suggested is that individuals with ASD are unlikely to perform well during these transition periods as a result of their deficits in social communication. Therefore, the inability to communicate effectively can essentially impact education, community living, and employment transitions for those with ASD. The second counterpoint argues that managing behaviors may be difficult to maintain, especially for those that are unfamiliar with the ASD population. Examples of difficult behaviors may include off-task behavior, non-compliance, and long latency periods to begin or complete a given task. Finally, it is argued that services are costly over time, and therefore it is questioned whether or not they are worthy of investments. For instance, it may be more cost-efficient to hire a typically developing individual or an individual with different types of disabilities that may not need as much support compared to their counterpart with ASD. Now, Addie will reveal interesting data regarding service transitions among those with ASD.
A review by Brooke and others in 2018 was completed over the long-term outcome of individuals participating in a vocational rehabilitation. The article conducted is a retrospective review of 139 records of individuals with autism spectrum disorder that were referred to an employment support organization for competitive integrated employment between October 1st, 2009 and December 31st, 2017. In comparison to the high national unemployment rate experienced by individuals with ASD, 104 individuals that were referred for competitive integrated employment gained employment in 126 different jobs. Findings indicated that most participants were able to limit their level of support from moderate and intensive levels to minimal levels of support after only 18 months of employment. This graph that I'll be showing you is the results of the research completed by Brooke and others in 2018. This reveals that individuals with ASD are able to work effectively with little assistance in as short as 18 months. The graph shows the number of individuals needing intensive, moderate, and minimum support with the time period. The minimal support increased from 60 to 90 individuals, which is shown by the solid black line at the top of this graph. Both moderate and intensive support decreased from 43 to only under 10, which is shown by the dashed black line and the solid gray line towards the bottom of the graph. With this information, individuals with ASD may not need the length of intense support to be able to be stable in the workplace as believed by many employers. The next visual aid that I will be showing you is a flow chart showing a functional or effective way to increase employment for individuals with ASD to begin and retain employment. Nicholas et al. 2018 followed a program with these themes: family, agencies, community, and workplace, and found an altered point of view from both employers and coworkers in a positive way. As this image shows, the ecosystems, which are these ones that I just listed, family, agencies, community, and workplace, surrounding individuals with ASD, these can lead to positive outcomes through support and facilitators. So the support and facilitators are up here, or it can lead to negative results through obstacles and barriers. So these things that are down here. As you can see, the top of the chart is the positive results. They move from accessing a job to engaging in the job, obtaining a job, and finally advancement or adaptation in that job. On the other side, the negative results that are affected by the obstacles and barriers, so a lack of support, at the bottom of the page, the negative results go from limited access to a job to difficulty engaging in the job, difficulty retaining a job, and then challenges advancing or adapting within the employment context. So when individuals have family that supports and facilitates them, then the individual will be able to better navigate and receive encouragement and transportation. With the support of agencies, there is an increased number of possibilities for the individual. Community can help provide housing, health and mental support, and other necessities for independent living. Finally, when the workplace values people with ASD and provides mentorship and support, the individual is more likely to access a job, engage in that job, retain their job, and advance within their workplace. Putting these ecosystems in place to provide support for individuals shows positive results for changing the mindsets of employers from thinking individuals with ASD cannot provide much to their companies and show that they actually are beneficial and add a unique learning experience for other employees and for their own teams. Next, Alex will discuss the point and counterpoints of employment for individuals with ASD.
The first point regarding education can be supported through research by Zidon and Associates in 2015. The findings in this study revealed that a 5-step process can facilitate smooth transitions for individuals with ASD post-high school. The 5 steps are setting transition goals, setting IEP and post-secondary goals, adjusting goals as needed, contriving teaching opportunities, and evaluating progress toward goals. Conclusions from this study ultimately revealed that using the data from this 5-step process can determine if goals are being met and effective, and will ultimately help guide the transition process for individuals with ASD. Of course, there are some limitations to address, which were outlined by Zidon and colleagues. For example, the researchers considered how IEP and secondary goals do not always relate to one another, which occasionally creates issues for generalizing target behavior. There are some ethical considerations for this point. I want to bring your attention to information pointed out by McDonnell and Revel in 2010 in that individuals with ASD over the age of 22 are no longer covered in the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, IDEA. This piece of information is important and problematic, especially when reflecting on the professional and ethical compliance codes enforced by the Behavior Analyst Certification Board, which will be referred to as the BACB. Specific codes to take into consideration are 2.09, in which clients have a right to effective treatment, and 2.10, in which evidence-based practitioners are held accountable to advocate for services needed by individuals with ASD. Further, 2.15a and 2.15b discuss how evidence-based practitioners should avoid leaving clients without services and make accommodations for clients, even if funding is disrupted. The next point is community and functional living. Findings from McDonnell and Revel in 2010 discussed how an individualized plan for employment, IPE, can be processed to assess vocational rehabilitation services. Findings from Kirby in 2016 also state the importance for an individual with ASD, as well as their family, to be integrated in each process to facilitate independence and boost morale for positive outcomes. In addition, parent reports from a study by Casagrande and Ingersoll in 2017 revealed that only 43% of services needed for their loved ones with ASD were met. Based off these findings, McDonnell and Revel concluded that familiarity with services available in the community is crucial for transition periods for individuals with ASD. Findings by Casagrande and Ingersoll essentially promote parent and professional partnerships to obtain the best service transition experiences. The biggest limitations to acknowledge for the research and findings by McDonnell and Revel is the limited research that is available. To strengthen the credibility of these findings, it would have to be consistent with future research. Limitations addressed by Casagrande and Ingersoll reflect on potential bias of parent reporting. So what about ethics? In relation to the professional and ethical compliance codes, there are several codes that tie in with the importance of remaining inclusive. For example, Code 2.02 notes that evidence-based practitioners have a responsibility to the client and those surrounding the client. Meanwhile, Code 2.04 discusses how evidence-based practitioners should collaborate with third parties in services, such as transition services for community and functional living. Again, 2.09a and 2.09b, which were mentioned earlier, are also important to provide clients with the best treatment and support and push for services that a client can benefit from long term. These codes link well with some recommendations by Panacci and colleagues in 2011 to facilitate smooth service transitions, such as involving the individual with ASD, focusing on the needs of the individual with ASD, and involving family in the transition process. The last point regards employment. Various findings will be discussed on employment opportunities for individuals with ASD. First, Chen and Associates in 2015 revealed that an individual with ASD is 3.06 times more likely to be employed with on-job support. In addition, in 2014, Ham and colleagues found that 87.5% of individuals with ASD receiving support services were employed, compared to 6.25% in the control group, which did not receive support services. In the end, these findings therefore call attention to the need for counseling and guidance, job placement, and on-job support services, which were noted by Chen and colleagues because they increase the likelihood of employment for this population. Moreover, Ham and Associates found that positive behavior support that considers an individual's strengths and helps manage behaviors are helpful to include during this transition period. Overall, this is consistent with Kaya and colleagues' 2016 conclusions that argue support services increase employment rate among individuals with ASD and highlights the importance of training from staff. Is this too good to be true? Well, one limitation noted in the study by Chen et al. In 2015 is that the study cannot confirm causality. There is also limited generalization and, of course, human error. Kaya et al. Also found no causality as a limitation in their findings. There was no information on the different levels on the spectrum for the population sample, and not all who were diagnosed fell under the ASD diagnosis criteria. Nevertheless, some professional and ethical compliance codes are important to discuss. Code 2.0 from the Professional and Ethical Compliance Code states, "The best interest of the client is a responsibility of the evidence-based practitioner." Additionally, 2.04 would hold the evidence-based practitioner accountable for effectively collaborating with service transitions for employment to facilitate the best interest of the client being served. At this point, the debate will shift gears to address each counterpoint. When it comes to service transitions and supports offered through employment, education, and community and functional living. In retrospect to employment, it is argued that offering services and support may be difficult for certain companies. For example, Ham and Associates found that some employers would require training to support the individual with ASD. For instance, there may be a reinforcement schedule or close monitoring may be necessary, which may be perceived as counterproductive. In the end, training can be implemented by evidence-based practitioners, resolving the employer of the burden. Services can essentially be provided on the job through support services offered for employment transitions and can be addressed during an IPE. But is this as easy as it may seem? Since there are limited reports, the future calls for researchers to analyze employer perceptions to address all employer concerns when hiring an individual with ASD. Ethically, by not providing an individual with the appropriate support, this would be in violation of several ethical and compliance codes. For instance, behavior analysts have a responsibility to clients noted in Code 2.0, and therefore should provide individuals with effective treatment and support as outlined in Code 2.09a. The next counterpoint is managing behavior problems that may arise. Some examples of problem behaviors are noncompliance, escape, off-task behavior, and stereotyped motor movements. Research revealed that problem behaviors such as these may interfere with the work life not only for the individual with ASD, but others in the working environment as well, which was discussed by Ham and Associates previously addressed. The conclusions from Ham and al. Bring awareness to potential problem behaviors and the necessity of more support services such as technology as a result of behavioral management. There are always limitations to consider, and in this case, the impact of problem behaviors and management in education, employment, or community living should be further analyzed in the future as there is limited research. Considering the professional and ethical compliance codes, it would be unethical to limit individuals with ASD and disregard behavior change programs addressed in Code 4.03a, which states that these can be made specific to various environmental factors, such as an employment setting. The final counterpoint reflects on cost of services for individuals with ASD. It is argued that vocational rehabilitation services cost a lot of money compared to other individuals receiving services with different disabilities, and this was addressed by Chen et al. In 2015. Although there is no solution determined to reduce cost while maintaining the level of support an individual with ASD requires, it is still important to consider ways to be cost-effective while still catering to the needs of an individual with ASD. Again, there is limited research which rarely states cost of services or programs that assist with cost of services, so more information on this should be examined in future studies. For this reason, this aspect should be considered a major limitation. The professional and ethical compliance codes would suggest that though there may be a lack of funding for services and this may call for services to discontinue, it is the primary goal of the evidence-based practitioner to find a way to continue providing support to the client until an alternative plan has been developed or the client no longer requires services, which is mentioned in codes 2.15a and 2.15b. Of course, it is also important to remember that clients with ASD have a right to effective treatment, which is addressed in code 2.09a. Now that all points and counterpoints have been addressed, our fielder, Addie, will reflect on commonly asked questions.
One question that is frequently asked about this debate topic is, what is the ethical responsibility of BCBAs in terms of assisting clients transitioning between settings? Bailey and Birch 2018 discussed the ethical compliance codes of BCBAs. Ethical Code 2.09a states, clients have the right to effective treatment. Behavior analysts always have the obligation to advocate for and educate the client about scientifically supported, most effective treatment procedures. Effective treatment procedures have been validated both long-term and short-term benefits to clients and society. Some clients with ASD get to a point in their treatment where the most beneficial step for them to take is working. Not only is it good for them to learn new skills in the workplace, but many individuals with ASD would like to be working. Brooke and others in 2018 report community-based employment rates for individuals with ASD, regardless of intellectual ability, reportedly range between 4.1% and 11.8%. This is a very low percentage. Kaya and others in 2015 state in their research that special educators, vocational rehabilitation counselors, and healthcare providers have increasingly recognized the importance of employment as a health promotion intervention for transition age with youth with chronic illnesses and disabilities. So this is a huge important deal for the health intervention of individuals with ASD. As BCBA healthcare providers, it is necessary to provide ways for individuals with ASD to gain experience in the workplace and be transitioned into a workplace setting. Another question frequently asked is, how can behavioral analysts help ensure empowerment is occurring for the clients? Much like the ecosystems discussed in the visual portion of this debate, empowerment would occur in a similar way. Behavior analysts are just one piece in a large community that needs to be supporting individuals with ASD in order for them to feel empowered and to flourish. This may mean that the behavioral analyst works very closely with an employer, or they may help advocate for their client by guiding a coworker or peer in how to effectively teach and mentor their clients. Helping our clients reach their maximum potential takes a community of individuals fighting the same fight for one person. Behavioral analysts also have the power to create behavior plans that could be put in place at a workplace. This could be for a coworker or employer to follow and aid in the transitioning process. Kaya and others in 2015 found in their research that on-the-job support and job placement services were the strongest predictors of employment outcome criterion. So those that they worked closely with helped increase their overall potential at their workplace. The odds of obtaining competitive employment were 4 times higher for participants who received on-the-job support and 3 times higher for participants who received job placement services. Youth with autism who received on-site support services like job coaching, follow-up, follow-along, and job retention significantly enhanced their employment prospects. So having people that are aiding these individuals in their process of jobs training was a major increase in enhancing their job potential. The final question that will be discussed is, are there any particular clients in which empowerment would not be an appropriate approach, and why? Many of the articles researched for this debate focused on clients that had applied for vocational rehabilitation. This is likely to infer that these individuals either wanted to work for themselves or had family members supporting and encouraging them to do so. Some clients may not be motivated by empowerment to achieve goals and enjoy a competitive workplace. Casagrande and Ingersoll in 2017 discussed that parent empowerment is often seen as an outcome of service delivery, as well as a process by which parents utilize knowledge, skills, and resources to gain a sense of control and to improve their family's quality of life. These clients may need to be motivated in other ways, such as wages, relationships, or rewards for the work that they complete after a certain number of days. Not all individuals with ASD have the capacity to work in the workplace. They may need alternative services to continue to gain skills at a pace with their capabilities. Overall, this debate discussed 3 types of service transitions for youth and adults with ASD. These include education, service and functional living, and employment. Examples of education service transitions include college training and literacy training, as noted by Chen and others in 2016. Service and functional living are adaptive skills such as learning how to use public transportation, grooming oneself, and other necessary skills for adulthood. Examples of these services include transportation services, interpreter services, community rehabilitation, and rehabilitation technology, according to Chen and others in 2016. Finally, employment was discussed. This is an important aspect to aiding in individuals receiving income that is based off of their unique gifts and skill sets. Some examples discussed include vocational training, on-the-job training, readiness, job search and placement assistance, and job maintenance, as mentioned by Chen and others in 2016. Some counterpoint perspectives included the lack of experience needed to further the points previously mentioned, difficulty managing the behaviors of those with ASD, and services being more costly to the employers. The study's research provided many implications as to why those with ASD are not only capable, but useful in service delivery areas, and why service transitions are extremely beneficial to individuals with ASD. Thank you so much for watching this debate on service delivery for transition age, youth, and adults, empowerment versus care.